Skill of the day. Today's skill of the day is the overhead squat. Now, the overhead squat is a movement that requires a lot of overhead stability, a lot of overhead mobility. So if you know that either of those two are a limiting factor for you, then one, we need to work on it, but we need to go really slowly with this movement. This is extremely important. If you know that you can squat 40 kilos, so what's the difference between going overhead, but you don't have the stability or mobility overhead, you can really open your shoulders up to a lot of discomfort, even pain, even injury. All right, so this movement in particular, more than most, we need to go really slow on, we need to build up to, and we need to get our mobility and stability there before we attempt any weight overhead. All right, so the overhead squat. This is what all of us start with an overhead squat, regardless of how strong you are. We always start with the broomstick. If we can see good position with the broomstick, then we can move to an unloaded barbell and slowly up from there. Now, everyone should have something that mimics this at home, so you can practice this movement with your broomstick, with your mop, with your broom, whatever it may be. All right, so first thing we're going to talk about is our active shoulder position. All right, so what does an active shoulder position look like? What we're aiming for in an active shoulder position is we're going to turn our armpit forward and lock in that lat there. All right, so at all times, this is pressing up into our weight, active through the shoulders, and keeping that armpit turned forward. All right, a really good way we're going to practice this now is we're going to hold our broomstick, mop, whatever it may be, in the palm of our hands. Now, no cheating. You're not allowed to sneakily put it between your fingers. You need to just rest it there. And what we're going to do is we're going to press that out overhead. We're then going to come into our squatting stance, and we're going to overhead squat without holding on to the broomstick. So now, if at any time you're tilting too far forward, the broomstick, mop, whatever you've got is simply going to roll off your hands. All right, so let's get our hand position really tall, press up, active shoulders, and we're going to squat really slowly. Ready? Squat. Hold it, press it up, armpits, press it up, hold it, down, knees out, weight in the heels, hold, and stand. All right, you can practice that a couple of times now. At all times, we're going to really focus on that rotation through the shoulder, get the armpits forward, active, and always pressing out into our implement, whatever it is. Once you've practiced a couple of times with an open hand, we're then going to come into a grip position. All right, how wide do I need my grip in an overhead squat? A really general guide or rule of thumb, if you place your implement into the crease of your hip and bend over, so it's right in that crease there, we can then slide our arms out until our arms are allowed to become straight. Once our arms are straight, that's about how wide we need our hands in an overhead squat. What that allows for is the bar to pass all the way over in case the bar goes backwards, and it also reduces the amount of mobility required in our upper back and shoulders. Now, if you've got really good mobility, you may be able to bring your hands in a little bit closer, which is going to provide you with more stability. So the closer the hands, the more stability, but the more mobility required. Once you've found your hand grip, we're then going to practice the overhead squat with a full grip on the bar. Now, we don't use a hook grip, we just use a full grip on the bar. Again, with wrist position, we just have our wrist just back on a little angle, so long as the bar is sitting here in the palm. We don't want the bar sitting in the fingertips, and that's a common fault for those with limited shoulder mobility. We try and get it into our fingertips so it sits back further over the midline, but then that's really going to put a lot of stress through that forearm, and you're going to feel a lot of referred pain into the wrist. All right, so we want that wrist just on a bit of an angle. From there, every time you brace through this movement, we go through our normal bracing sequence as we would in a squat. Quads, glutes, belly down, lats engaged. Now we're also pressing up into the barbell. Now, as we squat, in a squatting action, we lean forward, yeah? So as we squat, we need to counteract that by pressing the bar up, which is in turn going to press the bar back out over our heels. So as we squat, we're pressing up into the barbell. We send our hips back, always pressing up, hip crease below the knee, stand up nice and tall. Let's have a practice of a couple of those for a minute. Now, with this, you can get your partner to look at you, look down, make sure the broomstick or the implement you're using is sitting right over your heels. Another really good way of doing this is coming up to a wall. And what you're going to do is you're going to try and stand, say, 30 centimeters away from the wall, and you're going to do your overhead squat. Then stand 25 centimeters from the wall. And slowly but surely, you're trying to get as close to the wall as you possibly can. If you can get there and your toes are against the wall, then you've got a really good position. All right? That is today's skill of the day, the overhead squat.